Hey there! How's it going? We're happy to have you all here from around the world. If you're new to the channel, welcome to the family. Don't forget to like and subscribe. When Trump first got to the White House, he thought it would be easy to just sign a few papers and remove China from the global scene. But clearly, when he thought that, he hadn't looked at the numbers, because China, by itself, is practically a whole world, a whole planet. And once he realized the facts, he quickly backed down from that idea. In this video, I'm going to tell you what China actually owns, what the world would lose without China, and why China is way more important than most people think. If someone tells you that China is bigger than you think and more important than you imagine, believe them without hesitation. But if someone else tries to tell you we can easily replace China with India, Indonesia, or any other country, don't believe them, no matter what. So come with us on this journey as we uncover the treasure that the Chinese people have built with their own hard work.
Let's start with the industries and resources that China dominates or leads globally, starting with rare earth metals. China is the largest producer and supplier of rare earth elements in the world, which are essential for modern technologies. It produces about 69% of the world's rare earth materials, and it's almost the only country that refines and processes them. In fact, China supplies about 85% of the world's light rare earth elements and 1% of the heavy ones after refining. This kind of control gives China massive influence in advanced electronics, renewable energy, and even military technologies that rely on these vital materials. To give you a better idea, some examples of rare earth elements include lanthanum, cerium, and europium. These are used in making rechargeable batteries, smartphones, and even nuclear power plants. These resources are basically a Chinese monopoly. But that's not all. China also has near total dominance in the solar energy industry, from mining raw materials all the way to manufacturing solar panels. Right now, China makes over 80% of the world's solar panels, and according to expansion plans, it's expected to control 95% of the supply chain for solar panel production by 2025. This edge in production has helped bring global solar prices down because of China's massive output. But it also means the world is heavily reliant on China to make the shift toward clean energy.
And China doesn't stop there. It's also earned the title the world's factory because of its huge role in producing consumer electronics and more. For example, between 2014 and 2015, China produced 1.77 billion phones, which is about 70% of all smartphones worldwide. It also made 286 million personal computers, over 90% of the global supply. Outside of phones and gadgets, China leads in heavy industry and basic materials too. It's the world's largest producer of raw steel, making over half, around 54% of global output in 2023. It also produces about 60% of the world's aluminum. So a big part of the construction and manufacturing sectors globally depends on Chinese materials or Chinese factories. Any disruption in China's production directly affects global prices and supply chains. Another area where China has the upper hand is batteries and metals used in electric vehicles. Beijing leads the supply chain for lithium batteries used in EVs and modern electronics. Chinese companies control an estimated 70 to 90% of the global battery cell market and related technologies. They also dominate the production of battery materials. For example, China refines more than 90% of the world's graphite used in battery anodes. This leadership makes the world heavily dependent on China as the auto and transport industries move toward electric power. Now, if you think we're done talking about China's importance, hold on.
Let's talk about China's role in global supply chains and the economy. Today, China is a key hub in global supply chains and goods trade. It's the biggest exporter in the world and contributes a massive share to global manufacturing. China alone accounts for about 35% of the world's industrial output. Its exports make up roughly 18% of global merchandise exports. China is also the biggest trading partner for a huge number of countries, over 120 of them in fact. Thanks to its massive market and low-cost production, China has become a pillar of global economic growth. It contributes about 18% of global GDP, almost one-fifth of the world's entire economy. That central role means any disruptions in China, whether a health crisis or trade tensions, can shake the global economy. For example, the COVID pandemic showed just how dependent the world is on Chinese factories for medical supplies and electronics. China's lockdowns caused major delays and shortages worldwide. More recently, trade tensions with the US and some countries' efforts to decouple from China have had limited results, because it's incredibly hard to find alternatives that match China's scale and efficiency. Experts say this whole decoupling narrative is blown out of proportion. China is still an essential part of global value chains, and its real role hasn't declined. In fact, in 2023, the US Federal Reserve stated that a broad separation from China in global manufacturing isn't likely anytime soon. In other words, talk of cutting China off isn't realistic now or even in the future.
And finally, let's talk about China's technological and scientific influence. Basically, the industries of the future. China's power isn't just in traditional manufacturing anymore. It has expanded aggressively into high-tech and scientific fields, investing heavily in research and development. As a result, it's now a leader in cutting-edge technologies, especially artificial intelligence and scientific innovation. Between 2014 and 2023, China registered close to 70% of all global AI patents. China has also made massive breakthroughs in generative AI technology, showing just how focused it is on leading future technologies. And it's not just AI. China also dominates when it comes to digital infrastructure and 5G communications. Over the past decade, Chinese companies have taken over the global telecom equipment market. The best example? Huawei, which has become the largest provider of telecom network gear in the world. By 2023, Huawei held more than 30% of the global telecom equipment market, beating out big Western names like Ericsson and Nokia. Huawei also played a leading role in rolling out 5G tech across dozens of countries, offering high-quality equipment at competitive prices. That's actually what triggered security concerns in some countries, leading them to impose restrictions on Huawei gear. But that's not all. China is also home to major tech companies and internet platforms that now compete globally with American giants. For instance, ByteDance, the Chinese company behind TikTok, now has over 1.5 billion monthly active users around the world. That's huge. Other major players include Alibaba in e-commerce and Tencent, which dominates in social media and digital gaming. These companies are now among the most valuable tech firms in the world. And just when you thought China's achievements couldn't go any further, well, they've even made it to space. China has launched successful space missions to the Moon and Mars, and they've built their own space station, Tiangong. And we haven't even gotten into the Belt and Road Initiative, or China's growing military power, or its increasing political and geopolitical influence.
But we'll stop here for now and go back to our main question. What if China disappeared from the world? Imagine for a second that everything we just mentioned was gone. At the very least, the global economy would go through a major shock, possibly a long-lasting depression that could drag on for decades until the world could somehow replace what China currently provides.
We'll end this video with an interesting thought we came across while researching this topic. Historically, China was a deeply agricultural society. For a long time, the world viewed the Chinese people as mainly farmers. But now, China has become one of the largest importers of agricultural goods. Many economies around the world literally depend on exporting their farm products to China. In other words, the Chinese are no longer focused on farming. They've shifted to becoming massive consumers of agricultural products, and they've poured all their energy into industry and manufacturing. They've truly become the world's factory. This kind of transformation, from a country of farms to a global manufacturing powerhouse all within a few decades, is nothing short of a miracle in the literal sense of the word.
Thank you so much for watching. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Here at S News, we're committed to bringing you smart, reliable news and insights. We'll